You've probably heard the rumor that there's a kind of bullet so messed up, so dangerous, that it doesn't just hit you once, it keeps hurting long after. A dirty bullet. Sounds like something ripped straight out of a movie, but people swear it's real. Forums argue about it. Videos whisper about it. Comments claim governments don't want you to know. And the scarier part? Most people never stop to ask what's actually true. Because here's the thing. Ideas like this don't spread unless they tap into something real. Real fears, real history, real science, mixed with just enough exaggeration to make your brain go, wait, what if? If you've ever wondered whether these stories are pure myth, half-truth, or something way more unsettling, you're not alone. And once you understand where this idea came from and why it refuses to die, you'll never hear the term the same way again. So before you scroll, before you assume it's fake, or worse, assume it's real, stick with me. Because the truth behind dirty bullet tricks is far more interesting than the rumor itself. First things first, we need to clear up what people even mean when they say dirty bullet. Because here's the reality, a dirty bullet isn't a scientific term. It's not a military classification. It's not something you'll find in official weapons manuals. It's a phrase people use online to describe bullets they believe are contaminated, radioactive, toxic, or designed to cause long-term damage beyond the initial injury. And that vagueness is important because vague language is where fear thrives. Most of the time, when people talk about dirty bullets, they're actually mixing together multiple ideas, radiation, poison, nuclear weapons, and secret warfare, into one scary mental image. So where did this idea even come from? To understand that, you have to go back to the Cold War. This was a time when nuclear fear wasn't abstract. It was daily life. Kids practiced duck and cover drills. Governments built fallout shelters. Movies and news reports constantly reminded people that invisible radiation could end the world. And when people fear something they can't see, the imagination fills in the gaps. That's when the idea of the dirty bomb entered public awareness. A real concept involving radioactive material spread to contaminate an area, not necessarily to cause massive explosions. Over time, that concept got distorted, shrunk down, personalized, and eventually people started asking, if a bomb can be dirty, why not a bullet? That's where the myth really took off, because the phrase dirty bullet sounds horrifying, but it doesn't actually explain anything. And that's the trick. The word dirty implies contamination, disease, lingering death. It bypasses logic and goes straight for instinct. Psychologists call this risk perception bias. Humans are far more afraid of invisible threats, like radiation, than visible ones, even when the actual danger is low. So when someone hears dirty bullet, their brain doesn't ask for data. It imagines the worst-case scenario. But here's where science steps in and quietly ruins the horror story. Radiation doesn't work like poison in a movie. You don't just touch something radioactive and instantly suffer long-term effects. Radiation exposure depends on three things: dose, time, and distance. In other words, how much radiation, for how long, and how close you are to it. And this is where the dirty bullet myth collapses. A bullet is not an effective delivery system for radiation. There simply isn't enough material, enough exposure time, or enough consistency to cause meaningful radiological harm beyond the physical injury itself. Health physics studies have shown that even in scenarios involving radioactive materials, the primary danger almost always comes from prolonged exposure or ingestion, not brief contact, which leads to another claim people love to bring up. Yeah, but there are real cases. And they're right, kind of. There have been documented incidents involving radioactive materials and injuries. But when experts reviewed those cases, the long-term risk didn't come from ballistic use. It came from handling, storage, or repeated exposure, like workers unknowingly carrying contaminated materials for days or weeks. In other words, the danger wasn't the bullet. It was everything around it. So why does this myth refuse to die? Simple. The internet. Online, scary beats accurate every single time. A video titled "The Bullet That Keeps Killing" will always outperform why this isn't scientifically plausible. Algorithms reward emotional reactions, not nuance. And once a few creators repeat the claim, it starts feeling real. Because if everyone's talking about it, it must be true, right? That's how misinformation works. Not through lies, but through repetition. And here's something people rarely think about. If dirty bullets were actually effective, militaries would have explored them decades ago. But they didn't. Why? Because from a tactical standpoint, they're inefficient, unpredictable, legally restricted, and offer almost no advantage over conventional weapons. International law heavily regulates radiological materials, and modern military doctrine prioritizes control, precision, and predictability, none of which this idea offers. Which brings us to the most important part of this entire conversation. The real danger of dirty bullet tricks isn't physical, it's psychological. Fear spreads faster than facts. And once fear takes hold, it shapes behavior, policy, and belief, even when the threat itself isn't real. We've seen this pattern before, with chemical scares, with bioweapons myths, with secret superweapons that never existed. And every time the story survives longer than the truth. So the next time you hear someone mention a dirty bullet, don't just ask, is it scary? Ask where the idea came from, why it spread, and who benefits from you being afraid. Because this isn't the only weapon myth people believe. Some are even more dangerous, not because they exist, but because people think they do.